Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are live from Agile Meridian. My name is Kumar Danatran. I'm your MC for this. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sorry about that. Where was I? Yes, I'm Kumar Danatran, one of the founders of Agile Meridian, joined by my colleague, my good friend and colleague, Mike Jeber, who's going to introduce himself in just a minute. Before we get started, I thought I would just take a quick poll. We have a few people that are live with us right now. So put a 1 in the chat box next to the screen if you're excited and eager to learn about what this webinar is all about. Put a 1 in the chat box, please. I'll wait for that to come in.
1 or a yes. So we use ones for
yes.
yeses and we use 2 for nos, right? Trying to use it simply.
And while you're at it, maybe you can also add a little bit of information about yourself. You know, what city are you dialing in from? Something just that'd probably be enough. 1, yes, PZ, we got a 1. Awesome. And so this webinar, we're going to be focusing on the product journey loop, and actually really just the first part of the product journey loop. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike here in just a second. This is part 1 of 3 webinars, and we'll get into some of the details in the next hour. And we're going to be focusing on the why, the who, and the outcomes in what we have sort of created as a path to creating products that your customers will love. I don't know if you're the only one, PZ, but hopefully we'll have some more joining us here soon. We're going to give it a few more minutes before we start the presentation officially. But I'm going to turn this over to Mike, and you can introduce yourself. He's our star attraction. Take it away, Mike.
I will try to hold up to the billing, right, if I can. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Really excited to have you here today. We're very excited to talk about this topic. This is a topic that's very near and dear to our hearts. It's something that we talk about with just about every single client that we've worked with in the past. It's something that we've dealt with and worked with in our spaces and our professions prior to being coaches and consultants. And it's something that's so vital and so center to what any organization is really looking forward to doing, trying to match their mission and their vision and what their goals and objectives are, what they want to achieve as an organization to the products and services that they build and deliver. Also in terms of ideating, working in the modern environment where timelines are so compressed and the time to get value out of what you deliver is so compressed, and the demand from the customers around innovation and having that whiz bang wow service or product that comes out. There's a lot going on around this. So while it's been important to us for a long time, I don't think it's ever been more important than it is now in thinking about this, the product mindset. So let's move forward and talk about this from that product mindset standpoint. And like Kumar had mentioned, we're going to talk about something called the product journey loop, which is kind of a way to, if you want to think about it, operationalize the product mindset itself, a way to actually make it doable, right? To take a mindset or a concept, a way of thinking and acting and being, and actualize it into a workflow and a way to get an idea from being an idea out to value in terms of a service or a product or something good you want to do for your community or your customer base. So that product mindset really comes down to 4 kind of key macro areas that we'll refer back to. And the first one is really about customer centricity. This idea of being customer focused has been around for a while, but it's never been more important, and it's never been more necessary for organizations to think and drive their ideas and their products and services with the customer in mind. That's something that is probably not new to anyone joining this webinar today. However, it's hard to actualize that sometimes for companies that have been around for a while that have not been used to thinking about it this way. A lot of traditional companies go out and they were used to kind of defining the market. Well, the market is being defined by customers these days. So whether it be a community service effort that you're doing, whether it be some type of a service that you provide or a product, you really need to have that customer centricity in play. The second thing we're going to talk about is really being outcome focused or outcome centric, which again ties in with the customer. So those outcomes need to be really customer centric, but we need to be thinking about things in terms of outcomes. A lot of my experience, a lot of our partners and our clients' experiences have been that those things get thought about way too far into the production cycle or the design cycle of what we're doing, and not thought about prior to. So outcome centric is definitely one of the second key parts of having a good product mindset. Thirdly, we want to be aligned. We want to have the people be aligned with each other, and we want to be aligned with the mission of the organization or the mission of the product. You're going to see today as we talk about this that we're going to be able to refer to the products going through the product journey loop or going through this product mindset focus, both at a specific product level, which is what we're going to do some examples on today, because that's kind of the way our course does this as well. It's easier to consume that way, but it can also be done at a portfolio level. And the same types of mindsets and the same approach can be applied towards a corporate or global mission and initiative level. It's just what are the units that we're talking about that come into play. But essentially, the mindset needs to be there to tie all those things together. And having something like the product journey loop gives you a way to operationalize and to put into action a way of working that incorporates the mindset itself. The last thing is really recognizing that all of the things that we're going to talk about, especially in today in part one, we're going to talk about things that are going to be on the left side of the product journey loop. This is real work. And I can't tell you how many folks that I've worked with that really don't consider this as part of the work. They don't put it into their estimates. They don't put it into the things that they forecast or plan. And what ends up happening is it has to be done, but it ends up being done at the same time you're actually doing the building of something or the delivering of something, which is way too late in the game. That increases and introduces a lot of unnecessary risk into products and into portfolios and plans for your mission and vision. So those are the four kind of high level areas that we're covering when we talk about the product mindset that we want you to keep in the back of your mind as we go through this 3-part series that we're going to be talking about. So why does having a product mindset matter? It's a very good question. We talked a little bit about, just by looking at kind of what a product mindset is, you can kind of start to extrapolate from that why it really matters. But if you think about it, it's really important to align to the organizational why. Having products that don't align to who you are and what you do is not necessarily a good long-term strategy. Maybe you do that for short-term stuff. You have to do that for something else. But we want to be making sure that we're kind of keeping in line with who we are. And having a product mindset helps to do that on every product and through every portfolio very effortlessly, because it's something, it becomes a part of who you are and how you operate. It also helps us to be to keeping a lot of the risk out of the delivery side of what we do. So it's about being effective, but also about being more efficient. And both of those things are helping to drive the risk down on any product or service that we deliver. It helps us to bring up the opportunity and the likelihood that we're going to have something valuable quicker, that we're going to meet the needs and understand those needs and meet those needs of the marketplace and our consumers or the beneficiaries of what we're doing, and making sure that those things happen. As we go through this, we want you to go through in different sections. And if there are things that you recognize when we bring stuff up in the webinar, if there's something you recognize, go ahead and put a, hey, I recognize this, or a yes, or a 1 to say, yep, we actually do this. Or we'll probably ask a few times, is this something that you do, or is this something that you've seen in your organization today? you can say yes or no. And it gives everybody on the webinar an opportunity to see what others are dealing with. If there's folks out there that are seeing good progress with this, or maybe they've never experienced this before or seen these types of things. So, that's really why it matters. It's tying those things together, and it's trying to drive and make sure that whatever we spend our time on is efficient and effective. And we're driving that value in a way that can meet the market demands and needs in a timely manner with low risk and high quality. Having this why helps us to actually increase velocity with quality. A lot of things you hear in the agile space or in the lean space. And it's not about working harder or working more hours. It's about reducing the amount of steps you have to take to get something valuable, which you're going to see as we get to the product loop, the product journey loop. The fewer times you have to go through the loop, the faster you can be done. And it doesn't mean that you're sacrificing quality because you're working faster or you're working extra time. So
I have a question
sure, go ahead.
for the audience and maybe for you as well. So I'm curious, from an audience standpoint, do you all know your why, your organization's why? And you can answer with a 1, yes, we know what it is, or 2, we don't. We have no idea what our why is.
Yeah, that's really good. Whether you're in a product space or not, and we're actually going to talk about different roles in this, right? Wherever you're at in your company, have you seen this? Or do you understand the why of maybe the product or the project you're on right now? Do you understand it clearly? Do you understand what the outcomes are supposed to be, who it's helping, how it's helping them, what it might be doing for the business as well as for you, right? What are the business impacts that we're having? What are some of the outcomes that we're looking for customer impact? Right. So I think that's a good question. And everybody will start to see those things as they come up here, and we'll reference those. This is going to be good because hopefully we'll have some time at the end here where we'll be able to go through this stuff. So who needs to have a product mindset? Well, let's just cut to the chase, right? Everybody should have the product mindset. For different reasons, obviously. There's different roles within an organization. You have different things that you need to do. However, everyone being aligned and understanding what we're doing and why we're doing it, who we're impacting, what are the outcomes that we're shooting for, what are the options that we have in order to make this happen before we start putting pen to paper, before we start actually building or doing the work that it takes to get something to become an actual piece of value and deliver it out to whatever marketplace we're delivering to. It is an absolute must to have as much of that organization as you can to get aligned with that, and getting involved in different reasons. We don't have as much time today to go into that. We do talk about that in the product mindset course, and we go into that. But let's just say that it really is the more folks that are in tune with that, and the more folks that are aligned with each other and not distinct or separate in terms of their understanding as to these whys and whos and outcomes, the better. You're going to have better outcomes quicker with higher quality and better results. So let's move right into the product journey loop itself.
Before we do, I have another question for the audience. You did a really good job describing who needs to have a product mindset. It's really everybody that's connected with building a product.
Yep.
And we've got a few roles here, right? The PO, the product manager, the customer, the team. What other stakeholders do you see in your organization that should have a product mindset? Yeah, we know we want all of them to, but where do you see the biggest gap? And maybe you can put that in the chat and think about that. Put that in the chat. We can certainly come back and discuss it.
Absolutely. That'll be great. Thank you. So let's move into the product journey loop. So this is what we lovingly call the product journey loop. And as you can see, it's an infinity sign, right? It happens. It's a cycle. It's a way of thinking about, and like I said, it's a way to operationalize the product mindset. It's a way to take what we talk about, the things that we should be thinking about, the ways we act, and putting it into a pattern of activity that allows us to do things in an order and in a fashion that help us to be more innovative, to get and learn faster. We're in a knowledge workers world right now. And no matter whether you're in the manufacturing environment, healthcare, different types of services, community service and community outreach, this all comes down to having ideas to deliver value and to get benefit from that. And the idea around this is that Going big bang with these ideas and having concepts and then waiting to the end to find out, it just doesn't work in today's marketplace. We really need to be able to learn as fast as we can and to get those learnings into what we're doing, because what it ends up doing is it usually ends up shortening the journey. Actually, we get something valuable faster. It may not even be what we were originally shooting for, but we learn along the way, and we can incorporate those learnings so that we make fewer trips around this loop. Now, we actually do this loop in today's world. We may not do it in the exact order. We may not do it in this type of an efficient, effective pattern, but all of these things need to be done in order to deliver anything. And they have needed to be done for quite a long time, right? In terms of any modern product or service that's been going on over the last couple of decades, or last couple of centuries, I should say, is absolutely resembled or represented here. So what we're saying, though, is when you look at this, the idea of exploring on the one side of the loop and the idea of realizing on the other side of the loop is taking kind of that value stream mindset. If you're going from an idea on the left-hand side to value delivery on the right-hand side, you have this infinity loop that you're constantly going through on that journey. And you're literally looping through this thing as you go. And what you do is you find out at some point, this is where we need to be. And you stop and you exit, or maybe you enter into a new loop. But the idea here, and we're going to go through and cover today in today's session, we're going to cover the explore side today. So the why, the who, and the outcome. The second session that we're going to have, part 2, is going to be around the options. And the third session is going to be on the realize side around deliver, measure, and learn. And that's how we decided to break it up, because there's a lot to talk about in the options section. So we'll leave that for its own webinar. But let's go ahead and move into the why and talk about some of these things. Now, it's very interesting. So yeah, you can go ahead and move it forward there, Kumar. So there it is. Okay. So there's a video out there, and there's a lot of books. I don't know if you recognize this gentleman here, Simon Sinek. He does a fantastic job in describing very succinctly what it means to have a product mindset, and really looking at things from what he calls the golden circle. Looking from the inside out on this why, how, and what, in terms of when you're thinking about your company, your organization, a specific product, any level of scale that you're talking about within your organization. Now, what's interesting is what he talks about. If you've seen him, go ahead and put a 1 or a yes into the chat if you're experienced with this, or you've had a chance to actually kind of use some of his thoughts and his approaches. They're very, very good. And we recommend you definitely going out and looking at them. We cover this as a part of our course as well. But he talks about how most companies go from the outside in. And the really successful companies, if you think about in terms of branding or brand recognition, or people that are really attached more so than just to the product, but to the ideology and the mindset of an organization, they work from the inside out. They work from the why outward. And he uses Apple as an example in this video. I think that we're showing a representation of here, but it's a really, really good stuff to get into. His book's great. He's actually got several, but the video is a nice quick way to kind of get introduced to it if you haven't had a chance to experience that. And I see a couple ones here coming in, so it looks like hopefully those are the ones around this, and that would be great if you've had a chance to look at it. I'm sure you're like me, you're thinking, wow, this really makes a whole lot of sense. In thinking about looking again at the why, we have several ways, and we're gonna show you today a couple of techniques for why, for who, and for generating and figuring out what type of outcomes you want to have. They're not the only techniques that you can use, but they are really good techniques that we found that consistently provide value in a very, like I said, a very operational way to helping you stay within the product mindset and to kind of keep that flowing as you work and to give you the opportunity to move through the product journey loop in a very effective way, lightweight, but just enough to give you the types of things that you need. And you can do it at your own pace and at your own scale, right? You can think about it in terms of that. So in looking at that, we've got a couple of things we're going to talk about: a headline, and we're going to talk about an elevator pitch. So let's talk about the headline first. The headline is one of the examples we use. Again, we won't go into detail about each of these, but we're going to introduce them to you to make sure that you've got exposure to them. If you see any of these items, go ahead and put a 1 in, or, hey, I've used that before, in terms of your approach towards developing and designing, building, and delivering products or services. This is a great way to kind of do this. This headline thing is kind of like a headline of a newspaper, or a headline of a post, a website or a post. It's meant to hit you with something and say, hey, you need to see this. This is amazing, right? What is it that it's that drawing in type statement that you have? And this is something you're doing to kind of help vet out that why. You should be able to do this. If you really understand why you're building something, you should be able to sit down and go, okay, I could write a pretty good headline on that. That would be fun. It's fun to do these types of activities because they generate a lot of thought, a lot of conversation. If you do them in groups, which is what we do recommend, then you're going to have a lot of enjoyable conversation around this, but there's going to be a lot of innovation and ideation around it. And you come up with some really fantastic stuff in a very fun, in a very interactive and collaborative way. And you're building that connective tissue, that alignment that we talked about, having the product mindset. Each step of the way that you go and use these techniques, you're building on that. So it's not like something you have to keep track of. Go ahead, Kumar.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this isn't just for products, right, or services. It could be your personal brand.
Yes.
You know, you're thinking about a headline that describes why you do what you do. Yeah, a short, pithy line that attracts people, and instantly people understand your brand, your reason for going to business for yourself. You know, as a coach, as a yoga teacher, as a music teacher, whatever it is that you do, right? It's defining your brand, and whether it's for an individual or for a product that's part of a suite of products in a company, this still really works well.
Absolutely. It can work for a myriad of things like that. And it's a nice, fun, simple exercise, right, to do. So it's really kind of cool. Let's go ahead and move to the second one that we utilize in our classes, but also that we talk about as an alternative, or you can do both of them if you choose to. But usually you're doing one or the other. Whichever one you kind of like best will serve you. And this is the elevator pitch. And we've all heard about the elevator pitch. You can see here on the slide that we've given you, the kind of one of the formats that you have for building an elevator pitch. And again, done in group format, this can be a lot of fun. It can drive a lot of energy and passion and get people interested and create a lot of innovation and ideas around things. And we've seen, even in our classes, but also in working with clients, we've seen people come up with alternative products and services outside of what they were initially working on when they go through these early exercises. Because wait a minute, that's a whole nother product. That's a whole other thing that we could do. That's actually not what we're shooting for here. Or they pivot early before they ever get too far down the road to this better idea. Hey, I know we were planning on doing this, but this sounds way better, right? Let's investigate this, or maybe parallel both of those things through. Create another loop. Do one for the one idea and one for the second idea. So go ahead, Kumar. Oh, you're muted.
Elevator pitch is great for internal. Like if you're trying to build some momentum or excitement about your product, the elevator pitch is a great way to do that. And the idea is that you're building it for an elevator ride where you might happen to run into a potential customer and says, "Hey, Kumar, what are you working on?" And now you have a script that you can talk about. Or maybe you're the CEO of your company, or the C whatever O of your company, and they're like, "Hey, Kumar, what are you working on?" And it's a way to build some excitement about the product. And so while the headline is outward facing, the elevator pitch is to help sort of get your team aligned on why you're doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yep. Both very good tools. And they're a lot of fun. If you've had a chance to work with them, please go ahead, as we're doing through the rest of the webinar series, just go ahead and chime in on the chat and describe whether you've used it, what you use it on, or whatever you'd like to do to share with others that are on the webinar. So that'd be great. Let's move to the who. So we're talking about the second part here, which is the who. And again, there's a reasoning for the order, and you get used to why this order is in the way that it is. But it makes a lot of sense when you understand why. And again, kind of Simon Sineking this, going through and working outwards. He goes why, how, and what but we're still on the explore side of the loop. So we still need to understand and get alignment with each other and alignment to our missions and our visions around who are we helping, who are we servicing, who is benefiting from this, and what kind of who are they, right? Let's describe and understand who those people are. Again, very customer centric and driving that customer centricity that we're looking for. So when we go in there, we've got a couple of different techniques that we use with our clients, that we use in our course, but really there are more of these, obviously. But when you're thinking about it, anything that's driving towards this idea of understanding this customer better, user personas are something that have been around for a while. People like them a lot. They're very easy to develop. Everybody has their own flavor and their own pattern. This is one. I think we've even got maybe 4 or 5 versions of this that we've seen in different slides or different people and seen at different organizations. But the main purpose here is, again, get to know your customer, get to know who they are, get to know a little bit about them, get to understand why they are somebody that you should consider as one of your customers. And tie that, again, we're tying it back through what we did. Does that tie back to our why? Does that match? Does that marry? Are we going after the right people? Or are we kind of maybe guessing or hoping that that's the case? So building up user personas are good. There's different techniques. And this is an example of one that you can build at looking at behaviors, demographics, needs, and goals, and the like. Another thing that we talk about are customer journey maps. This idea and this focus of being on a journey, both in terms of developing a product or a service, in terms of a portfolio, a mission and vision for an organization, but also thinking about the journey of the individuals going and utilizing your services is interesting. I was thinking about this last night when we were doing some last minute preparation for this. And my son is now in high school. He is a freshman here locally. And I'm thinking about, and we spend a lot of time at my family around his journey through high school towards college and then on, and thinking about that journey. So there are many journeys within that, right? There are the journeys within his courses and his courseware for specific subjects. There are journeys that he's going through in the classes. His social journey through all of this is going through as a high schooler is quite the thing. And then he's also big into sports and soccer and some other things. So there's multiple journeys going on. We're thinking about that in terms of our product or our service, right? We want to understand this consumer or these beneficiaries and what their journey might look like. And understanding that journey is going to help us to make sure that not only are we hitting the right types of things inside of our product or service, maybe we can break it down into smaller bits. Maybe we can have smaller units of this go out, each with its own value, and then be getting feedback and learnings from that and testing that as we go forward before we've invested too much time and money only to find out that we're missing the mark or we misunderstood or misread something. So it is a really helpful tool. A lot of great exercises and ways to do that. But basically, you're laying this out in a nice visual format. We like to use visual formats as much as we can for consumption and ease of use. The next thing we're going to talk about is an empathy map. Now, I'm sure, go ahead and put in there if you've used empathy maps in the past. I think that this is pretty widely used. I know a lot of folks that we run into have done empathy maps and used them before. The interesting thing is a lot of times they're used later in the process. Or I've even seen one organization I worked with where they were using it almost as a root cause analysis tool to figure out why something did or didn't go so well, instead of doing it early on to understand where you might want to go with your product or service before you start actually developing that, designing it, and then delivering it. So the empathy map, again, is another great tool. Lots of different empathy map formats out there to be utilized, and it is something that I think is really good. Go ahead, Kumar.
I just wanted to say all of these tools, really, whether it's the empathy map, which it's in the title, of course, you're trying to build empathy. You're trying to build an understanding of who your customers are, what they want, what they need, what they don't even know that they want or need, right? In some cases. And, whether it's a customer journey map or an empathy map, in either case, you're really trying to understand what it's like to walk in your customer's shoes, right? And so these tools really help you connect with the customer. And it's especially important when you think about a large organization where the people that are building the services or the products are so far removed from the end customer. There's many layers between them. There's and so it's hard to make a connection to the customer. Who's really using this? Why are we building this, right? What is their why? And so these types of tools help connect, help kind of provide that bridge between the customers, internal or external, and the people that are building the products and the services.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that feeds a lot of things, right? If it can feed back up into some of the more macro things that you're doing at your organization. If you're learning these things on a product level, it will feed your portfolio. If you're learning that in the portfolio level, it may feed your goals and objectives for the company, and then also allow you to tie that back in with, are our goals and objectives actually tying in with our mission and vision of our organization, so that you're holistically solid from end to end organizationally on what you're doing, all the way down to the individual product or service level. And you can tie those things all the way back up to the macro level of what you're trying to achieve as an organization and as a group of individuals and talent. So I think that's really, really key. And you're right. Empathy is key. The journey map is the same thing. You're trying to empathize and understanding and get in touch with and actually walk in that journey, that customer or the persona's journey in their shoes. So go ahead. You can go to the next slide there. So the last thing we're going to be kind of covering here is the outcomes for today's part one. And I think this is really, really important. How many here, I'll ask this, how many folks here, and you can do a one again or yes, experience the situation where you're learning about the outcomes as you're building the thing, as you're actually building or delivering the service, or you're building the products, you're still getting what we call late requirements, right? You're learning them or discovering them as you build it, and no one has the answers for this thing. This is one of the things that we try to avoid with the project or the product journey loop, is to put this in its proper place in terms of when it should be happening. It happens today for everyone. The problem is it happens much too late for most people, for where it needs to be. Again, unnecessarily injecting risk into your projects and into the products and services you deliver, in terms of both meeting objectives, delivering value, and hitting the mark with something valuable in the time frame that you're supposed to be hitting it in. A lot of times it results in just late delivery. So this is really, really key and important part of this, because when you put the three of these things together, and this is building cumulatively, right? As we're moving towards the options, you're building all of these things on top of each other, and you're creating this understanding that will now give you really good, clear, concrete options that you can move to in the next section, so that you're spending your time on delivery in a very effective and very meaningful way. So let's move into some of the tools that we use in terms of outcomes. And I know, kind of, Kumar, we talked about this even as late as last night, the idea around OKRs, right? The whole idea. How many folks here are familiar with OKRs? You could put 1 plus OKR, whatever, if you want to put it in there to say, yes, I deal with OKRs. That's something that we know that a lot of folks do. It's been around for a while. They're very effective. And it was interesting. I know in our conversation, Kumar, I love the way that you phrased it last night when we were talking about this. When we go into our product journey loop and we're working on outcomes, we really emphasize the idea of value being customer outcomes plus business impact outcomes. We want both of these things involved in our value equation as we've got it here. And I love the way that you mentioned it last night. And I'd like you to kind of mention that again for the audience today, in terms of how this concept of value kind of takes OKRs and builds on it.
I don't remember what I said.
You did it. It was perfect.
It was probably something around. It's probably something around OKRs, or I don't know, something around it being sort of almost monolithic, right? So it's like, what's the objective? What are the key results? And you end up with a whole bunch of key results, it's hard to differentiate what's a business impact that you're trying to achieve and what's the customer outcome that you're trying to achieve. And really, it's a combination of those two that result in value for the organization. Was that something to that effect?
Yeah. And I think it was like taking OKRs. It was like OKRs plus, right? Like taking that concept of OKRs and almost taking it to the next level. Not that it needs it, but the idea that we believe that there's value, there's increased value in being able to look at it from both of these perspectives. And if you wanted to do it in almost a simplified way, you could almost have kind of OKR-ish type of things for customer outcomes and things for business impacts, right? And maybe business impacts come down to being measured more by KPIs, more so than OKRs. And you can see a lot of people today use both of those things together very effectively, and for the things that they're very good at doing. I think that the key here is don't make sure that when you're talking about value, and if you're familiar with things like KPIs, OKRs, and the like, make sure that you're kind of defining them as customer outcomes and customer impact and business outcomes and business impact. Because you may have certain things that you're going to look at when you get to prioritization of work that say, well, we're going to do this one because it has a really high customer impact. Even though it doesn't have a big business impact, you can talk about your why as to why you're prioritizing this versus that. And it's very good to know because it will also inform the people that actually do the work to build, not only design, but build and develop and deliver your product or service. They will understand that this is this piece of it, and that the next piece coming that you've got in line is going to kind of balance out maybe the customer outcome. And this next one has a little more business impact, not as much customer outcome, but that's the way we chose to do it because of this, that, and the other. You've got a lot of good talking points to this, so you can make stakeholders align. You can help get others around the organization to be in alignment with the approach, with the plan, and with everything else. And you can pivot quicker when you learn things because everybody is aware of all of the components of why you did what you did and what you're looking for or shooting for, and why a pivot makes sense now because they're fully informed, just like you are. Again, building that alignment around this. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, a lot of times the business impact can be, like you mentioned, can be intangible. You don't know what it is until you try it. But there is at least the hypothesis that there is a significant customer impact by building a product or service, or enhancing a product or service, or entering a new market with a product or service. All of those things are they may not affect your bottom line immediately, but there are things that you still want to do, and kind of separating in this manner can be really valuable.
Yeah, it can make it an easier conversation with certain folks in the organization that may be responsible for either the customer side, or maybe they're responsible for the business impact side. They may, sometimes the roles in organizations, they don't have really purview or responsibility over both. And you have to go to both groups and show them and get them together and go, hey, this is how both of you are going to win. This is how we're going to do this so that both of you win, right? And we're all going to win as a group, and our customers and our beneficiaries. So
Jay, who's online, he's a good friend of mine, and just left a really nice comment about this. Basically, delivering high customer impact will ultimately deliver high business impact as you start to build, as you build trust with your customer. And I can't agree more. It's about the relationship, right? In this digital world that we all live in, and making connections with your customers and doing that in a manner that impacts them, because ultimately it's gonna pay back.
Meaningful connections, right? Yeah. Meaningful, beneficial connections. Exactly. That's a very, very good statement. Eloquently stated too. That was a great way to say it. So looking at this and talking about outcome examples, this is one of the examples we have from our course. We talk about an objective with looking at both customer outcomes and business impact. We talk a lot about leading and lagging indicators. We talk about those and educate folks who aren't used to them on what they are, how they're generated, what their purpose is, how they can be put together and combined to be able to leverage things like we're doing here, looking at different outcome potential scenarios and taking an understanding around some of these things to generate hypotheses around what we think is going to happen based on the data. Now, again, we're gathering a lot of data here before we've ever gotten in, and we're starting the design process by pulling in this information, but we haven't really built anything at this point yet if it's the first time through the loop. Now, if you've gone through the loop multiple times, you're going to pivot, you're going to have a lot more data and a lot more learning, and these things are going to become more specific and more direct. Maybe the loops get faster, you start to accelerate through them a little bit quicker. But the idea here is that getting this data is really going to be helpful, because some of this stuff, the lagging stuff will come, maybe as a hypothesis in the beginning, but we're going to be measuring that at the end. And we want to be able to have something to go after. We want to be able to have something that we can shoot for and that we can learn from We're doing a lot right now with a couple of clients around experiments and learning activities and how they work together in concert to be able to be innovative. This is the same thing driven in a little different context around the product journey loop, which is really, really beneficial towards helping you with a lot of these things.
Yeah, the way I like to think about leading and lagging indicators is that leading indicators tell you if you're on the right path. And if you're not getting traction, if you're not getting the impact or providing the impact that you think your hypothesis states that you will get, then maybe it's time to pivot, right? So your leading indicators allow you to adjust your approach, whether it's a product that you're developing, a service that you're enhancing, or whatever it might be.
Right.
It's kind of like your speedometer. If you need to get to California by next week and you're driving, then you need to average a certain amount of speed to get there. That's your leading indicator. And if you don't average that, you're not going to make it by whatever date that you've set. That's your lagging, that's your goal, that's your target. And so it works that way for these as well. The customer outcomes, business impact is thinking about these things in terms of how do I instrument my process, my product development process, so that I can tell if I'm on the right track or not.
Yep.
And that's really a key.
Yeah, and it does accelerate all of these things when you start to put them together. Really accelerate your ability to get value into the marketplace quicker. Imagine that if you're one of our partners is from Indianapolis, and imagine the Indy 500 out there. I've gone to a few of them. My sister lives out that way, and 500-mile race, 2.5-mile track is 200 laps, right? So imagine that everyone else has to go 200 laps, but you only have to go 150 laps to get to be done, right? To finish. Well, you don't have to drive as fast as everybody else. It's not about speed at that point. It's about effectiveness. Every time around that track, you're getting more out of that trip than your competitors are. So you're able to actually finish sooner. It's a big competitive advantage in terms of being innovative and getting things out quickly. And that's the way you need to think about this. Fewer times through the loop usually means higher quality, on time, on budget, with a lot of innovation and quick learnings to react and pivot and make a better second version or third version or whatever you want to do with the next loop itself. And when you start that next loop, you can inform the beginning of another loop. So, these are two things that we talk about in the outcomes side. Again, other types of tools out there, if they're generating the same types of things that we're looking for, then they're gonna work for you. So you don't have to be hard and fast on these tool sets. I think, Kumar, what do we use? Anywhere between 60 and 80 different tools in I call them arrows in my quiver, that we have. And maybe, we use 5 of them for everyone. We use 15 to 20 or usual suspects that we use a lot. And then the other ones are very situational. Or interchangeable in some cases. So definitely think about the things that you use today in doing these. Think about when you use them, and are you using them early enough? Because that's where a lot of folks come into this and go, oh, we're doing it. We're just not doing it before we start work on building it. And then think about, what's been successful for you, and you can plug that in to that portion of the loop, and it will absolutely work for you. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Kumar, for the close. And then I think we will have some time for questions. I was really trying to move quick enough so we would be able to do that, because it looks like we've got a lot of good information on our chat feed here. So you're on mute again.
Our next webinar, we're going to focus on options. So, we've kind of gone through the why. We've defined the reason that we're doing a product. Again, this is from a product-centric standpoint, right? We've defined who we're doing it for. We've defined some outcomes, and what do we do next, right? So we might start with some user research. Let's try to start validating some of our hypotheses, and talk to some people. Hey, we have this great idea. Would you even want it, right? We might do some prototyping, some simple prototypes to put in front of people to get their feedback early in the cycle. And that's maybe those are things that we might plan in our options, and maybe even deliver, measure, and learn from on this side, on the right side of this this loop. But in our next webinar, we're going to be going over some of these tools, user research, prototyping. Impact mapping is a fantastic tool to really, once you have a better sense of the validity of your hypothesis, then you can start judging and gauging what would be most impactful, again, from a customer standpoint and a business standpoint as well, right? So what would be most impactful? And those are the things that you prioritize and work on first. And then story mapping sort of feeds from that. The things that are most important, you start to break down into smaller pieces that your teams can go off and deliver. And all these things, of course, feed into a roadmap that we'll be talking about in the next section. And in our third webinar, we're going to sort of cover the right side of the loop, the deliver, measure, and learn, which we'll be talking about later.
All of these tools, again, Kumar talks about feeding them. They literally feed them. You get the information for some of these tools from the last set of activities that you did in many cases, or you're pulling that data in and saying, okay, well, that means this. And you're using that to inform filling in the next set of tools. So doing them in a sequence like this, there's a lot that once you get used to going through the loop a few times, it starts to become very, very fast. And it feels like a lot of steps before you get to the point where you're actually doing something. But you are doing something. That's the part to remember in terms of the product mindset. This is real work. It is work that happens for every product and service you deliver today, whether you do it up front or do it in this part of the loop, or whether you do it later on when you're trying to actually build the thing and then you don't have those answers and you're trying to guess. I think it's really, really important to
and I will say that, early in the cycle, the deliver, measure, and learn, depending on the options that you're working from, maybe it's user research or prototyping, these go relatively fast, right? And it feeds information back into your why and your who and your outcome. It feeds data that you can refine the reasons why you're doing something and who you're doing it for and the outcomes that you're trying to accomplish. And as you gain more confidence in the idea, the loops tend to get maybe a little bit longer, but that's the whole focus of Agile and Lean, is to keep these batches small so you can learn as much as you can and feed the next cycle of innovation, right? This is not a linear path, right? It's a continuous path.
Yep. Yeah, if you're interested in actually doing this in a class environment, we actually have a class coming up on April 4th. I think there's a warm-up session that we do for like an hour to get people used to the tools, because we use some good tools, some good collaborative tools in this to make this emulate it as much as being in person together as we can. Obviously, in a remote environment, that's not the case, but it's a really fun course to take. And we actually go through and do all these things, and we use all these tools and techniques. So you get a chance to do it in groups with other people attending on products that you kind of pick to do and work on. So it's kind of a workshop, very much a workshop environment for those four. It's really 4 half days plus in working with it, like 5 hours a day or something.
Yeah, you probably already got some information, those of you who are here, about the course, and you'll get some more information. What questions do you have?
Yeah, I want to get to the questions.
Just put them in there. We'll definitely be monitoring the chat here. Also wanted you to be aware that you can reach any of us, after this call. You just, our headline at Agile Meridian, our headline is Deliver Amazing, right? It's simple. It's one we all can remember. We don't have to think about what our headline is. It's because we're passionate about not only us delivering amazing results for our clients, but also enabling our clients to deliver amazing in whatever they do.
Yep.
So that's kind of our motto, our headline, if you will. So you can email us at deliveramazing@agilemeridian.com with any questions you have, or if you want to sort of dive deeper into this webinar, obviously just email us and we'll be sure to respond.
Yeah, and it is being recorded. I saw someone ask if they had to leave early if it's being recorded. It'll be out there on the YouTube channel.
Yep, that's right. We do have a YouTube channel. This will be part of that, and so it's always viewable in the future. And the course that Mike was mentioning is this one here. We call it the product mindset, because we think that It's not just product owners, from a Scrum perspective that need to go get a certification or whatever, learn how to do this. It's the organization as a whole, all the roles. So this course is constructed around the idea of that loop, the product journey loop, and all the people, the stakeholders, the architects, the developers, the product owners, the product managers, the project managers, the program managers. We try to imbue a sense of what this mindset really is about, and the different tools and techniques that people can use to connect better with their customers, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do in our work. Whatever you all do for your work, for your businesses, it's about making stronger, more meaningful connections to your customers, and that's what this course is really meant to serve and to solve.
Yep. And while there's a you can get a product owner certification, IC Agile APO certification. We are applying this now at non-Scrum locations. In fact, non-IT locations. I've got a manufacturer I'm working with right now that is very much a customer-centric culture within their business. And they saw this and said, wow, this is something we can really, it helps us to organize what we already are trying to do today. So for them, it was a way to organize and to patternize something of a lot of the things they do today in kind of a way that they thought it was going to be a better order of work in order to go and their value stream from idea to value delivery. And there's another group that we work with as well that talks a lot about connections and talks about connecting with people and connecting with individuals, connecting with other groups of people that are not necessarily the same as you. You are actually doing this when you go through this loop. You are connecting with people that you may or may not have a lot in common with. And building those connections both internally with each other to deliver a product or service, and then building those connections with others outside that you're trying to serve is huge towards individual growth, towards the ability to take things and become more innovative in your mindset and more collaborative in your mindset, and can make those connections can be just, it makes you not only feel great about what you achieved, but you feel good at the end of the day because you felt like it was fun doing it as well. And we all know in this day and age, having fun at whatever we can find to have fun at doing, especially at work, is going to be a good thing. So.
Yep. So before we close, I'd love to get some feedback from whoever's left. We got about 10 people still with us. Thank you for staying with us. On a scale of 1 to 10, if you can just put a number in there, the amount of value you got out of this hour. 10 being it was awesome. I couldn't have asked for anything more, and a 1 being this was just a total waste of my time. And we'll wait for that to come in.
Yeah, this is good information for us, so we can take a fast feedback loop on this session and go and see what we can do to improve part 2 and part 3.
Yeah, and just as you guys are thinking about what number to give us, this course, I think, as Mike mentioned, is really so awesome when it's applied to a mixed group. Mixed roles. We've done that with some of our clients, where you have product owners, but you also have members of the team and designers and project folks and executives, sort of all in this course together, learning together, simulating what they would build together, right? That's where the magic really happens and people start to get what this mindset is. Thank you, Jay.
We got a 10. All right.
Woohoo!
Thank you, Jay.
And while you're thinking about what number to give us, also think about any questions that you have. Again, you can put them in the chat, or you can just email us at deliveramazing@agilemeridian.com.
Yep. And I think, Kumar, can you add comments to this after the live session when it's on the video? Can you?
I'm not sure. This is, by the way, our first time doing a YouTube live session.
Yeah.
So this is an experiment for us. We're trying it out. It seems to work well for a webinar. What I miss from other platforms is the ability to open the floor and actually see and hear other people. But it does seem good. Thank you, Jenna. A 9.
Thank you.
Awesome. Love it. And I I don't see any questions yet, but we're going to keep it open. I'd love your feedback just in general. What did you like about it? What might you apply from this to the work you do? Maybe Jay or Jenna, you could sort of share what you might apply. Because ultimately, these things are only as valuable as what you get out of it and what you may put into your work from it.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Mike? What did you get out of it?
Myself?
Yeah.
Oh, every time I go through this, I think of different ways to apply it. I think of different applications. I think of different ways, different groups of people that could apply it to what they do. I spend a lot of my time applying business agility, lean, systems thinking, and delivering amazing to outside of the IT world in different industries. And I'm always trying to think of ways, how can education take this in? How can community service take this in? How can government take this in? We could use a little bit of that help, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty much all those different areas. That, how can folks take this and leverage it in? So I'm always looking for a way for someone to say, I don't know how I fit into this, and helping them to make that connection, I think, is really, really important. Hopefully that going through these seminars or going through these webinars will help a few folks make some connections. If they're currently doing some of this, or they don't see how, they would at least just reach out. We're available. Talk to about all of this stuff. If you have questions around how would I leverage this in my space from my role today, contextually. So
Jenna has a question. We struggle having everyone adopting the product mindset. Any suggestions on how to get started? I think the first thing that comes to mind is just get aligned. Why are you building what you're building? Alignment on the why will help you get more alignment overall, right? And you're right. Healthcare is very highly regulated.
We do work in healthcare, though. I've done work over the last 7 years in different healthcare situations. So the interesting thing is healthcare has adopted a good bit of lean. Some of it's a little more kind of the regimented lean, not the true spirited lean. But there's a lot. Healthcare is actually, it's a lot like finance, where you've got Sarbanes-Oxley regulations and audits and things like that. There's a lot of ways to make an adaptable, contextual mindset like this fit into a highly regulated area. I started my journey with this in insurance, which again is highly regulated. So there's definitely ways that you can impact this with regulation and actually make the auditors happy and bring them closer to you and make them part of the solution, as well as folks that are, risk assessors and a lot of researchers.
Bringing them into the process, having them understand the products that you're trying to build, service that you're trying to build. And actually, Jenna and we work together, so we can take this offline. I'm sure the questions you have, we can talk about them, after this call. Hopefully this has stimulated some thinking on your part, as I'm sure it has, knowing you. So thanks for the questions. And thank you, Jay, for your comment as well. Right. So it sort of, I feel like what you're saying is that it helped you sort of kind of visualize the process end to end, right? So how does this all work from a sales, a life cycle perspective, marketing, all those things come into play when you're talking about the outcomes, right? So what's the strategy and how do you execute on that strategy? So great comments.
Thank you for staying after, by the way, folks, for the folks that stayed. We appreciate that.
Yes.
We'll go ahead and let you go. We know you probably used your lunch to do this, so try and sneak a little lunch in today while you can. And thank you so much for joining. We hope to see you in our following series in part 2 and part 3. And again, any questions, please reach out to us, deliveramazing@agilemeridian.com.
And just a final plug for our Agile Shorts channel. So we have a bunch of videos out there, lots on Scrum, lots on, sort of personal relationships, building those professional relationships and building those at work. So subscribe to our channel, and we'd love to see you at future webinars and just more informal live videos that we broadcast. So see you next time.
This was great. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Kumar.
Bye-bye.